Going live. All right, we're live. See if anyone shows up. It's all good. You know, I don't like these videos to be lame after the fact. So, oh shit, I left the record I'm listening to over there though. Oh fuck it, you know, let me grab it real quick because I'm hobbling around anyway. Actually, it's this thing. I'm gonna flip it while I'm up. And I'll talk to it for a second. Yeah, I got my ankle cut on a couple days ago, so I'm kind of hobbling around a little bit. It's not super bad or anything, but it's not great either. So just curious how many people are on here. I'm trying to use the new fucking YouTube thing, and I'm not really clear on how this works. So, oh well, whatever. So yeah, like my fucking if y'all want to hear about it, that's cool. But otherwise, I don't give a shit. This fucking thing keeps like giving me these stupid ass pop-ups and shit. Piece of shit. All right. You know what's funny is like with the swearing, I can guarantee that like it's not for children. Right? So anyway, we're listening to "Do or Die" by Viking. So I was listening to the second record, which I think is actually probably better than this one. But this is a really cool record too, man. And I actually had this a long time ago. Just kind of got it again relatively recently. And I appreciate it a lot more than I did, man. Like, I don't know, it just sounded ordinary to me before, and I suppose it really isn't, like, the greatest thing ever, you know? It's kind of, you know, like a lot of the thrash from right around, like, 87-ish, which is when this was recorded, sounded like, you know, 88. But it's just enjoyable, man. I like the songs. I like the sound. It's nice and heavy, you know what I mean? Kind of rough. And that's it, man. There's nothing not to like. Yeah. Let's see, I think this thing says 7 viewers. Oh, and there's a like too, but I don't see anyone in the chat yet. If you're in the chat and I'm not responding, it's because I don't see it. So just like, I don't know, let me know or something. Say something in the chat, I guess. This fucking thing seems all weird. I'm not sure if this is even working. All right, whatever, man. Let's just keep fucking going. So that's what we're listening to is Viking. We're listening to kind of a lot of Ultimatum lately, actually. So this is a relatively new arrival. Symphonic Extremities. It's kind of cool to have these early ones like out on record, you know, since they never came out at the time. I don't think any of them did anyway. I'm pretty sure they're all just CD only. Especially like in the 90s like this. Hey, right on, Thumbfinger and Mick. Thanks for joining. You know, I appreciate it. And thanks for letting me know if this thing is working because I wasn't even sure. Yeah, it's like this really old picture of Scott there, you know. But, yeah, it's interesting hearing this shit because this record sounds so much less fully developed. Hey, thanks for joining, Big Italy. It sounds so much less fully developed than the subsequent records, you know, which I'll show in a second. Like, it's funny because I always thought that Scott's voice is really distinctive on these other records, you know, like, especially this one, which is probably my favorite, you know. It has a really sort of like gnomish, weird sound. Abacus right on. Thanks for joining. So, yeah, and like on that early record, he sounds like a hardcore, not a hardcore singer, like a crossover singer, you know what I mean? In a way that's kind of weird, you know, which is, I suppose, of the time, but it just more sounds like he hadn't found his style yet, you know? So these subsequent ones are really a lot better, I think. Puppet of Destruction is probably my favorite. But this one's really good, too, man. Fucking, I've been playing all these, too. Yeah, Into the Pit. So, yeah, it's good shit, man. You know, this is originally released in 2007, but it's really... it's really true to like what that sound was, you know what I mean? What was going on. It's like from a stylistic standpoint, as far as like the aesthetic of these records, nothing changed between the earlier ones and the later ones. They found their sound a little bit more, I think. But that's cool. I mean, I talked with Scott about Symphonic Extremities too. He said that was basically a couple different demos. And, you know, they would have had to pay a fuckload of money to go back and re-record the shit. So they just like took the demos and ran with it. It was like some microscopic label that did it for them too, probably. But anyway, the bottom line is the shit was recorded at different times and kind of sound a little bit different because of it. It doesn't come across all that much on the record, but like I said, the band just doesn't sound as fully realistic or realized as it did later on. So yeah, so it's just interesting, sort of historically. Someone in the chat recommended this one to me. Actually, not in the chat. This is the chat right now. In the comments section. I wish I remembered who it was, but I suck at this. You can tell I take this shit to heart because, like, you say, hey, you should check out this band. A couple videos later, I'm showing the record, right? But I might forget who the fuck it was who had said it because I'm kind of a shithead that way. Yeah, but this is Lord Crucifier. This is another one that I had a long time ago, and I didn't really think much of it, so I let it go. And I can see why. There are a few things about it. For some reason, this back picture just always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. You know, it's Metalworks, but it just seems like it doesn't look right. This is like doesn't seem like what a metal record should look like. You know what I mean? It seems kind of shitty to say that, maybe, but that's the way it is. Focus of Life. Oh yeah, it doesn't help you that this guy's name is Hungry. I mean, that's just fucking corny, man. I mean, Jesus, you know. Anyway, this record is really chaotic, and I still don't really have my head around it. Listening to it, I can see why I didn't dig it before, because it's really kind of... I think I'd be going too far to say incomprehensible, because if I say that, then I'm implying that I'm not going to get my head around it, and I think I will. I think there's something here that I'm starting to clue into, but haven't quite completely clued into yet, if you know what I'm saying. So I'm really kind of fascinated by this record right now. I'm going to play it a few more times before I put it away. In fact, I'm going to put it over here. And I might even put it on next. I had a different one in mind, but we'll see. So anyway, so I'm just going to check on, see how many people are on. Okay, it says 11 people, so right on. Not talking to myself here. Yeah, what was I saying about that record? Yeah, just that it's interesting, man. You know, I'm kind of fascinated by this Metalworks label, too, because it doesn't seem like they did a whole lot of releases. Like, there was this, and then there was some Virus, which was also, like, a really weird kind of English thrash shit, too. Especially the first record, which is on Metalworks, Pray for War, although I think the second one was, too. Force Recon. And Force Recon's more like a regular thrash record. But no, they're both kind of weird. Not as weird as this, though. This is really fucking weird. And this isn't as weird as Deliverance, which is the real band that I associate with this. The fucking Devil's Meat band, like the band that I'm pretty well sure was convinced is fake, but made 3 records that just blow my fucking mind because they're so goddamn weird. It's like, they're like Doom records, but just like by people who are like, maybe they were like 50 and they didn't understand Doom at all because they were like boomer session musicians and shit. And they like took a bunch of acid and decided to make a fucking Doom record, and that's how it came out, man. It's some weird shit. All right, so these are recent reissues by Cobra. In fact, there are 2 of these. Hang on, there's this one. And there's this one, Warriors of the Dead. And unfortunately, these both have bonus tracks on them, because I kind of don't like that. I'd rather just have the album. But there's an exception to that in this stack. So, and you know something? The extra songs on these aren't so bad. It's just like, here's why I don't like bonus tracks, okay? Well, this is one reason why. Like, you see on this one, like, you look at the bonus tracks, and it's like, okay, Cobra demo version, Warriors of the Dead demo version. Well, look, fucking... it's the first 2 songs here. So it's like, you know how lame it is, like when you see a band live, like a local band, and like for their encore, they just like redo the song that they played first in the set? That's like this, only it's on record. So you have to like get up and like lift the needle to get away from it instead of just walking out and kind of feeling a little sympathy for it. It just seems kind of annoying, man. It's like, even if these are really cool versions, it kind of fucks up the continuity of the album. So anyway, this is a really cool record. And you know what's weird about this record is these guys do a lot of things that generally kind of annoy me when it comes to writing riffs. Like when you have one of the things that you hear in a lot of new wave of British heavy metal bands that aren't very good is they'll like have a weak chord progression. Here's some theory shit for Thump Finger. They'll have like a weak chord progression, but try to cover it up with a little syncopation, and it'll be really cheap syncopation too, you know. But it's like they'll try to cover the fact that like their riff is basically going from the tonic to the subtonic, you know, the leading tone or something like that, and which is weak and shitty, and then they'll like, you know, syncopate it just a little bit. They'll like go like half beat early to the second chord, so that, you know, it's like that covers it up somehow. Well, these guys do shit like that all over the place, but somehow they manage to deliver it. They just pull these songs off anyway, and it's just really good and kind of amazing a little bit. So, yeah, so Cobra, Warriors of the Dead, it's not the greatest thing ever by a long shot, you know, but it's a cool record. I mean, look at that fucking cover too, man. You really can't argue with that a whole lot. Same thing with this one. I think this is the second one. This one might actually even be a little bit better, even though the cover's a little bit shittier. Not that I mind a shitty cover or anything, right? But, yeah, this one didn't jump out at me as the songs haven't been as kind of lazily written, if that makes sense. Maybe that just means I wasn't listening as closely, but I kind of like this one a little bit more. But I'm really happy with both these records in any case. Hello from Kazakhstan. Really? That is awesome, man. I really appreciate that. You know, well, it's not Kazakhstan, but it's another former Soviet republic. There's a band from Kyrgyzstan that made a metal record that's really good. I've kind of been keeping an eye out for it, but like you find the thing online and it's like $200 or something. So I'm kind of hoping to, but goddamn, you know, I saw someone show some records from Kazakhstan a while back, and I don't think I have any, and I'm not really proud of that. But you know, what can I say? The Russians were the hegemons, even like when, you know, metal sort of became a little bit more of a thing in that part of the world, you know. Anyway, appreciate your showing up, man. That's awesome. So wait a minute, who's related to you? Some figure said, LOL, they're related to me. You talking about Cobra or something like that? They're fucking related to you? That doesn't even make any goddamn sense. These guys are from England. Although, who knows? For all I know, you have family from England, too. I'm curious. I got a bunch of shit. There's going to be a lot of Jesus metal in this one, because I got a pack from... actually, I got a big pack from Retroactive and one from Rocks. So this is a reissue of the third Bride record. And this is really good, man. It's funny. Well, I don't know, man. I was going to say this didn't look as good as the first couple, but I don't know that any of the Bride records really appealed to me until I sort of realized they're a really fucking good band, because they just kind of look a little bit second rate, honestly. And the first two were on pure metal, which doesn't help because so much shit on pure metal is cornball. Awesome. Crocus in Kazakhstan. Right on. Yeah, so anyway, the first record is just awesome. It's kind of like thrashy, but sort of mid-paced metally. Second one's even more kind of speedy and thrashy, and this one's a little bit more sort of like sort of a step back to more sort of a traditional metal style, and it suits them really well. There's one song on here that sucks, Rock Those Blues Away, and it's like, I don't know, I was talking about with Scott, he said it was like a joke track. I don't know if I'd really call it a joke track. Maybe they intended it that way. It doesn't really come off as a joke track as much as just like kind of, well, I don't know, I guess it is a joke track. It's just like they were trying to sort of mix it up a little bit and put some little throwaway piece of shit at the end, and I swear I'd rather they just made a shorter record, especially because now they put a bonus track at the end, and it's actually really good, but I have to sit through this piece of shit as the second last track to get to it, so I probably won't be hearing it much. So, anyway, though, man, this is really good, man. The song's really good. I think Evil Dreams might be my favorite song, you know. Fool Me Once isn't bad, though, the opening track right there. Yeah. All Hallows Eve. Just really good songs, man. Sort of mid-paced, you know, kind of classic metal sound to it. Definitely sort of informed by what happened in the second half of the 80s. You know, it sounds a little bit more... It sounds a little newer than that, but it's really good. Here's another one. This is a great cover. I kind of bought this one just for the cover, but Ritual Servant, man. Metallum Evangelii. This is actually a more recent one. Here, not only does this one have a great cover, but it also has a song on it called 10 Lepers. How can you not want to hear a song called 10 Lepers? That's a 10 out of 10 when it comes to song titles, like one for each leper, right? Anyway, man, this record is fantastic. Like, I was like, this just looks so cool, I've got to have it. Yeah, but, and if it's good, it's gravy. Well, it's actually really good, man. The songs are awesome. This is another one I put on this next to. Well, these guys are still in action, so who knows, maybe I'll get a copyright hit or something. But very limited run if you decide you're interested. But this one is definitely sort of on the thrashy end of the spectrum as far as how they play. But for me, somehow, and maybe it's just me and my expectations, it was vibing out with a little bit more sort of classic metal. So I don't know. Maybe you'll just listen to it and just sound like total thrash. But it's honest. It's hard. It's not. They're not trying to like do 10,000 different things. Just trying to play straight ahead metal, and they do a damn good job, man. It doesn't. I mean, it's obviously total Jesus metal, right? It does not come off as preachy as all, though. You know, it's like you want to know what Bible verses they're referencing in these. It's all in the insert. But if you just want to enjoy that shit and sit back and just like listen to some first-rate metal, this thing delivers, man. So Ritual Servant is a great band. And, yeah. My motivations in buying that may not have been the most sort of, sincere, but I'll tell you, man, that fucking record is, it's worth it. Something like, here's one that didn't really rip my face off. Is Deliverance. I'm kind of starting to think that maybe I just don't like this band all that much. I've never heard a Deliverance record that I thought was terrible. Now, there's some that I haven't heard, okay? But, like, overall, these guys have generally, they deliver. But I've never heard one that's great. And, like, I feel like there's certain flaws that are easier to identify. Like, there was a particular, like, there's a thing about Deliverance. They have a way of sounding a little bit derivative all the time. You know what I mean? Even when they're taking the shit and putting it together in like their own way, and even when and even with the understanding that like all bands rip shit off. I mean, that's part of the thing. I mean, I remember reading a thing once. I don't know if it was actually Paul McCartney who said this, but it was like someone talking about like if you're gonna like ripping off a song is like how you start writing a song. Like an example, God, this is like when I was in school. I read this somewhere. Like if you want to rip off like Please Mr. Postman, that like you could start off with like Sorry Mr. Milkman. And that'd be like, and like write your song from there. Hey Shane, man, it's good to see you in here. I appreciate it. So anyway, but like there's this particular song on this one. I don't remember which one it was now, but it sounded like he did something in the vocal line. I was like, man, that just sounds like he lifted it from Alone in the Dark by Testament, And it's like there are little things like that. And I remember sitting the second record when I remember sitting around with my brother listening to that one, going, yeah, this little thing right here, that sounds like that tune from Anthrax, and this little lick here sounds like, you know what I mean? So I don't know, man. Maybe I just need to spend more time with these guys and they'll grow on me. But this Deliverance is funny because I was talking about another Deliverance before, whom I absolutely love. This Deliverance, be overstating to say they're a little bit opaque to me right now. But they're not kind of what I want. I'm going to put this one on right now, man. I was going to put on a different one. I was going to put on Randy. I'll talk about Randy in a minute. So.
Gotta take it easy.
Fuck. So as far as my foot being fucked up, which is part of why I'm streaming right now, actually, as opposed to just doing a regular video, I like a growth on my ankle. It actually got cut off a couple of years ago, and it was funny. I had stitches that time, and like I just I used the stitches as a thumbnail for the video, right? And I kind of want to do that again this time, but this time it's just like a fucking open wound, and it's really kind of gross. So, like, I mean, I'd be happy to share it because, such things are kind of interesting. It's like, when you're a kid, and it's like, I'll give you a nickel if you show me, like, what's under your Band-Aid, right? But I don't want to just fucking automate. I mean, you know, I'll put people off by setting a drink on my stereo, but I don't want to do a shit like that. It just seems kind of unnecessary. So yeah. Anyway, I have like this open wound that's like, you know, this big or something. And the funny thing is, man, it doesn't hurt like at all. Like last time, I couldn't put any weight on it for like days because you know, the stitches would break and shit. And it's weird because this time, even though it's like more sort of graphic, I can put weight on it, and I just sort of have to take really good care of it as far as, you know, keeping it clean and bandaged properly and shit. So it's interesting. We'll see if it was better. Last time was a podiatrist. This time it's I went to a dermatologist. And if you're joining this the stream and you're in your 20s, this is what us old men do: is we talk about our health issues. You know what I mean? Like sometimes me and Thumbfinger or Shane, we talk about our diabetes and shit like that. Actually, I don't have diabetes, and I'm just fucking around. Listen to this. This is how weird this is. I don't know how much of that is coming through, but like right here, it goes sort of in a semi-regular groove, but then it just sort of goes right back off. Like as soon as it settles into a riff, it moves on to another riff. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's so weird, it doesn't even sound like a riff. It kind of reminds me of Spectral Incursion a little bit, which is probably even more obscure than this. So I don't know if that's much of a good touchstone. Yeah, Chris, right on. About the diabetes, totally, man. I said before, really cool. We say diabetes. Yeah, so I think I really like this band, but I'm not quite there yet. You know what I'm saying? Though the reason I brought Spectral Incursion into it is because they always sounded to me like they're trying to do the Voivod thing, but they just tried to go just a little bit further, and when in going just a little bit further, kind of blew the balance. You know what I mean? Where with Voivod, there were all the riffs and the weird sort of songwriting, but it still sort of came together. You know what I mean? They kind of crossed that line and just like not total anarchy, but just not as listenable. Although I like Spectral Incursions, so I'm making them sound worse than they are. Anyway, Lord Crucifier, man, we'll let it play for a little bit. I'm going to show you one of the greatest things ever here. And this particular record is that there was a 500 run and it's out of print and it's gotten expensive. But I'm not sure. I'm telling you this because there's a new reissue of this. I think High Roller's doing it. It's a different cover, but just keep this logo in mind, this Tyrant logo, okay? Because this fucking band, this is one of the greatest things. I swear to Christ. They talk about, you know, there's a lot of talk about like the new wave of British heavy metal and the Nawabum or whatever else. I've been a little bit hung up on that shit lately anyway. There are a couple other things along those lines in here coming up, which is ironic after all this Jesus thrash I've been showing, but whatever, you know. Yeah, you gotta love this cover too, man. Like that awesome pencil drawing and shit. But anyway, this is like one of the most epic things ever to come out of England. And they made 145, which seems to sell pretty consistently for about $400. And you listen to this, and you know why. So both songs are on here from the single, Eyes of a Stranger and Hold Back the Lightning. And the rest of the shit was probably like a demo or something, except for that last one, which is live. But man, these fucking songs hold up. Like it goes into Take It to the Dragon or We've Surrendered. Those songs are just as good as the ones that made it to the 45, you know? So Overkill from LA, that's an interesting question. You know, they had one song on a Metal Massacre comp that fits right in, you know, and I always thought of it as being more of a punk band. Hey, anyway, before I lose the thought, this is going to come out again, so if you're like into this kind of metal shit, I really recommend you grab it before that new one dries up, because that shit is just so good. If you like that like epic metal sound, it's just perfect. Okay, so Overkill from LA, there was a song, I want to say it was on Metal Massacre 2. I could be wrong about that. And it fits in really well with the vibe of the album overall. You know what I mean? When you're sort of listening to it track by track. And it really made me sort of go, shit, you know, I always thought of these guys as more of a punk band, you know, especially being on SST and all. So maybe I should give them another chance. But when I listened to some of the record online, it sounded a little bit more punkish to me, you know what I mean? It kind of wasn't I wasn't really sure if I liked it or not. So I've thought about reaching for it because it's not very expensive either. But yeah, I mean, is there anything I should know about it, man? I appreciate the inputs. I mean, I was just talking before about how I'll show it in a couple videos. I think that one's like a $10 or $15 record too, you know? Hey, right on, Lee, man. Good to see you on here. Thanks for joining. All right, I'm going to check that one out, man. The Overkill record, I've been playing with the idea of checking that one out again and spending some time with it anyway. So, yeah, I'm going to do it. All right. Anvil. Hard and Heavy, first one. You know, once upon a time I had an original with the lips, Hard and Heavy, with that really stupid, like, lips on the cover. But I traded it for a copy of the Quest record, which is like an obscure-ass private press, and I can't really say I've ever regretted it because I like that record more. But you know, so this is a really cool record, man. Between 70s hard rock but punk attitude. See, now I'm really curious because I didn't hear the 70s thing in it. I heard some of the metal, but see, I was listening for metal because I was listening for that Metal Massacre vibe that I was talking about, right? So, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm going to check it out. You know, speaking of 70s hard rock, got the mustache, right? I should be doing all 70s, but, you know. Yeah, so I was actually watching one of Steve Harmless Rebels videos the other day, and he busted this out. So I actually pulled this out while I was still watching the video and put it on. And, you know, something, I almost balked, dude, because these guys are so fucking corny, man. And it's like they always were corny, right, with fucking sex songs and shit. But on this one, it's every single one. I was like, side one, School Love, AC/DC, At the Apartment, I Want You Both, in parentheses, with me, and Bedroom Game. It's like, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to fucking tolerate this. But I don't know, man. Maybe it's because I was watching TV while I was listening to it, but this just came off as like a really sort of awesome, like mid-paced, like 80, 81-ish, like hard rock record. I mean, you know, early metal, right? But in spite of the fact that they, you know, they have thanks to hot-looking pussy everywhere, which is really kind of the sort of thing that tends to turn me off. It's just a cool record, man. I mean, it doesn't pretend to be anything it's not, that's for sure. And, like, as far as, like, the sort of mid-pace, kind of AC/DC-ish, like, in spirit, but a little more sort of genuinely metal than AC/DC ever was, as far as, like, less boogie and more sort of, well, metal, you know? This record just delivers, man. It's really good. I mean, it's not going to usurp Forged in Fire or Metal on Metal for me, but this is a really cool record in its own right, man. And, yeah, I fucking dig it. On a similar note, I pulled this one out, and I kind of felt like this one peters out a little bit towards the end. And, you know, I always think of this as being like, oh, this is the best Saxon record, and it is my favorite. And it starts out great. The whole first side is fucking first rate, you know what I mean? And the second side, there's really nothing wrong with any of the individual songs on there. But, like, by the time you're all the way through them, at least for me, I'm kind of done, you know? So, I don't know, man. Maybe someday I'll, like, get to the point where I'm just, like, fanatical about this band. I know Scott Waters was for a long time. You know, I definitely like Saxon, but I almost wish they had made, like... I have, I think, 3 Saxon records... And I almost wish they were each like 5 or 6 song EPs. You know what I mean? Because that would be perfect. They'd like leave you wanting more. But the full LP just always feels like a little bit too much Saxon for me, you know? So, yeah, that said, these records, they don't turn up all the time. When they do, they don't tend to be very expensive. So they're totally worth having. So I'm not talking any shit. All right, you ready for a little more Jesus? A little more Jesus metal coming right up. Look at this, man. It's the later Vengeance records. They're Vengeance Rising. I still tend to call them Vengeance because they were on their first record. But this is actually the last one, man. Released Upon the Earth. And, you know, I'm just going to talk about these two together because I got them at the same time. I'm kind of digesting them together. This is a third one. I do not have the Lost for Words records. I'm trying to think if I've even heard of them before. Yeah, I'll have to investigate. You know, I think I like these later Vengeance records more than the first one because the only other one I have is that picture disc of Oh, I forgot what it's called now. The first one by these guys though, and there's still Vengeance for part of it, right? And I feel like these just sound more fully realized, man. I feel like the vocals were kind of goofy on that first one sometimes too. That was something that always puts me off a little bit when I put that one on. Like, I actually don't think it's like I don't know, like in some of the songs, man. Like the way he sings "I Love Hating Evil" just comes off as corny as fuck, man. Or like "Burn Satan, Burn," and it's like I don't know, man. Like it might have been pulled off like with a more sort of straight vocal delivery, which they do on these. Although these might just be a little bit more mature and a little less goofy, you know. I mean, none of these song titles on here are kind of as corny as on that first one, but you know, these just feel like sort of a band that's like understands what they're doing a little bit better. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I can't do Jesus metal. I can get that, but there are a few things. Actually, one thing I've gotten from this whole like making videos thing is like a reintroduction to Jesus metal. Because in the 80s, man, everything I heard was just fucking crap. I mean, Stryper was like half of it anyway, and Stryper sucked. You know what I mean? Let's be honest about that. Bloodgood, fucking terrible. But the other thing is like Jesus metal, at least at the time, was always like what a couple of the kids. I mean, I was religious at the time too, but a couple of the kids who were like too religious to the point where like they were afraid to like listen to secular shit at all. Like that was what they were going for as like a substitute. And like by that metric, man, Jesus metal is forever second rate. To this day, Jesus metal is second rate as a whole thing when you're comparing it to like the whole world of music. And how could it not be? This isn't even like an indictment of Jesus metal. This is just like the reality is if you take all of the music in the world and you only accept the subset, you're not going to get the fullness of everything that's out there, right? I mean, it's just inevitable, unless all the greatest bands just happen to be Jesus metal, But it just doesn't work that way. I mean, some of my very favorite bands are satanic, right? But there's some fucking boring ass satanic bands too, and some that just plain suck, So, I don't know. It's like I feel like coming back around and being reintroduced to some of this shit through people talking about it a lot, and also turning onto a lot of bands that I wasn't really aware of at the time. Especially since a lot of these bands came out and were really sort of like Vengeance and really sort of came to whatever prominence they ever came to during a period where I was probably listening to less metal than I ever have at any other point in my life, except like when I was a little kid, right? A lot of the shit just went right by me, you know what I mean? I don't know that I would have paid any more attention to, say, Believer in the early 90s if I had been more into metal, because by that point I'd already written off Jesus metal, But as it is, yeah, it's been, and you know what it is right now is it's the sort of like little treasure trove of bands that I wasn't already aware of, because I don't want to be like boastful or anything, but that's my metal section. That's not even all of it. Okay, those 6, and then two more rows down of that, and then another cube with the compilations. You know what I mean? So when I discover like a new band, Vengeance is a good example, man. Like a band like that, where it's like, oh god, these guys made some really cool records, and I haven't heard this shit before. It's kind of like a little treat, you know what I mean? And now it's like, when I come across a Jesus metal band that I haven't heard of before, it's like, oh wow, maybe this is some new cool thing that I haven't discovered yet, as opposed to like some fucking dreck. Let's throw this away, you know what I mean? So. Yeah, in fact, maybe that's what I was trying to say about Bride before, too. You know what I mean? It's like if I listen to Bride, Show No Mercy, as like, this is like the representative for this style that I'm going to have in my record collection, it really kind of sucks. But if I listen to Bride as just another metal band that's doing something similar to a lot of other metal bands that I also dig, and it's kind of part of this sort of larger metal scene, and putting the Jesus thing, not making the Jesus thing like the central focus of how I look at it, it's great, I really like, I have 3 Bride records. No, I have 4 Bride records, and I like all of them a lot, So, I don't know, man, maybe it's just the context around that, you know what I mean? It's just my perspective on it, which has just kind of changed, So, I don't know Starflyer, or Starflyer 59, yeah, not familiar with that shit. So I'm curious. Speaking of Jesus bands, though, the other thing I've gotten really into is a I talked about this last year when I was listening to hippie shit. But like some of that old Jesus music, you know, the shit that was like actual Jesus music, like the hippie shit where they were into Jesus, the early 70s. And it's funny because these are like cornball, like by my standards, kind of indefensible, like folk rock records, you know. A lot of times it was like really boring, like women singers that just sound like the pastor's girlfriend or whatever, you know what I mean? But I just love some of these records anyway, man. Like the Holy Ghost Reception Committee is fucking awesome, you know, or The Last Call of Shiloh. So, yeah, okay, if it's a 90s emo-ish band, I don't know if I'd be able to hack that band. Anyway, White Cross, Donnie Harrison, you're asking about White Cross. I have been tempted to check out White Cross again, but I remember hearing White Cross at one point in the past and fucking hating them. So I've had a hard time thinking about going back and revisiting that. You know what I'm saying? Maybe one of these days, because, you know, it's one of those holes to fill in now where it's like I kind of want to know what they sound like again. You know, I listened to Striper, you know what I mean? I went back and listened to those 80s records again. They're still terrible, you know? So, all right, Just Al, thanks for asking about Spencer, man. I actually tried making a video with him. He was in town for Thanksgiving, and we tried to make a video because a few people have been asking about him, and so, you know, it was like, why not? And so we did a 5 Random Records video, but I don't know if you remember, like, when I usually make videos, I use the camera on this side of my phone, this old-ass fucking phone, right? And they come out fine, but the one on this side, like the files get corrupted, and or over here, I guess the cameras, the files get corrupted, and it like ends up jerky and just like fucked up. And I made a couple at one point where I tried to make a couple cooking videos or something, and they came out all fucked up, and I just gave up and threw them away. So we kind of forgot about that, tried to make the video, got all fucked up towards the end. I was like, fuck this. So it was kind of an anemic video anyway. I kind of felt like I was phoning it in and Spencer was half asleep. So it wasn't, you're not really missing that much, but we tried to make a video with him. So he's going to be back in a couple minutes for, you know, the Christmas holidays. So, and then actually, since you asked, he's going to Alaska for like at his school, they have a winter work term. And he's going to fucking Dutch Harbor, which is like a 2-hour flight from Anchorage. So it's way the fuck remote. Like, it's worth looking up if you're really interested. But I don't know if I would be if it weren't my kid, but you asked. So fucking what can I say, man? I'm the proud dad. So I don't know Dusters either or Helvetias. So by all means, keep bullshitting about this stuff. I'll just sort of glance at this from time to time and like learn or try to. So it's another one I grabbed because it was in the half-off bin at my record shop. This is a reissue that I actually didn't know existed until I found it in the half-off bin. But this is Mr. Universe by Gillan. And I'm actually going to bust this one out because the vinyl on this one is pretty awesome. Like, people talk shit about colored vinyl. Like, dude. I'll bet you felt weird going to the Christian bookstore for that shit. Man, that's probably half of why these bands like sort of became as obscure as they were, because that's where they sold the shit, you know what I mean? It's like you hear about the fucking, like them changing the covers because the Christian bookstores didn't want to carry it, and it's like, man, fucking come up with a better distribution network, you know? It's like, I mean, even Striper managed to do that shit. Okay, so let's talk about Gillan for a minute, okay? Actually, no, let's not. Let's turn over the record. Actually, I'm gonna play a different one for a sec. Yeah, Tooth and Nail. All right, so here we go. I'm going to bust this out. This is like, so a while back, I was kind of challenging people to come up with worse band names than Bashful. And probably the best one, as far as contenders go, came from Marty Worm, and that was Tease. Because there have been a couple bands called Tease, which I don't get because it's a fucking terrible name to begin with. And so, why, you know? But, yeah, like it's bad already, and then it's even worse when it's spelled with two E's and a Z. Like there was Tease, T-A with a Z in the 70s, and then T-E-E-Z-E in the 80s. And neither of those bands was really terrible, actually. But the name, absolutely fucking terrible. It doesn't matter how you spell it. It's an awful name. But I think Bashful still beats it out. Now this one. This is a Danish band called Randy. And they made 145 when they were together. And this is a very recent reissue on No Remorse out of Greece. But like as far as like mid-pays, yeah, dude, see, yeah, Lee, it doesn't matter how you fucking spell it. It's terrible. It's an awful name, right? Now, Bashful is a worse name. And Randy, I mean, that's a contender, man. That is a bad name for your band, you know? Yeah, exactly, dude. Fucking you spell with 2 E's, it's even worse. But why, man? Why didn't... you would think one band calls himself Tease, and like the other guys go, oof, that's a really bad name, man. Fucking dodged a bullet. I'm glad we didn't do that. They go, no, let's fucking name our fucking band Tease again, you know? So, as far, yeah, who names a band Randy? You know who does? Non-native English speakers, that's who. Although, dude, fucking, I'll just pull it out, man, because I'm talking about it so much. I'm just wearing fucking shorts because my fucking foot is all fucked up here, but whatever, man. Fucking, y'all know me. Yeah, here's the Bashful record, man. This record's fantastic, man. And that logo isn't even bad. It's not great, but it's not terrible. But what the fuck were they thinking, calling themselves Bashful? I think it was this guy who came up with the name. Although this other guy, this one right here, he does have a first-rate mustache. So, yeah, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking, man. But this is actually a fantastic record. I don't know, Bashful, man. It's filed between Barron Cross and Bathory. So maybe that's... you know, I bet they were too fucked up. Okay, so Randy, apparently there was some sort of pun, like, because it had something to do, not a pun, but like, it was some sort of play on the town they were from in Denmark or something. But it's still a shitty, shitty name, and they should have realized it. Yeah, it doesn't say on here. At least I'm not seeing it, you know, and I don't want to, like, make the whole video of me trying to solve this mystery of why they thought Randy would be a good name. But listen to this shit. This is great. And this is one of the fucking demo tracks, too. Like I said, they only had the 145. The 45 they reproduced in the record. That's actually separate. It has a better cover, too. It has, like, some weird-ass monster. Hey, you can eat and keep watching the video, Al. Yeah, and the song is called Rock and Roll Symphony, by the way. No, it's probably the second song. Yeah, fuck it. I don't know what song we're on. I've only played this once before, but I love it. Okay, so we're talking about Gillan. Actually, let me catch up on the chat here. Too fucked up. So, oh, right on. Thanks, Al, man, in Alaska. I appreciate that. All right, so Gillan. This stuff, you see a lot of Gillan solo shit on some of the new wave of British heavy metal comps. And, yeah, totally. With the fucking SS runes, yeah. That's totally what this looks like. I mean, you know. Let's try to Chris. No, here's the thing, man. Chris isn't a dorky enough name, man. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't want to start, like, pissing off everyone who might be named Randy or anything, because I don't really intend to do that either, but, like... Fuck it, listen, I'm just going to dig myself in a hole if I go down there. Yeah, so Gillan, that fucking Child in Time record he did with the Ian Gillan band in the 70s, I think that was the one I have. It's horrible. It's awful. It's fucking boring and terrible. But these ones as Gillan are pretty good. At least I've sort of been treading a little bit lightly. But this one is really good, man. It's fucking, I mean, most of the songs are like 78, 79. I don't know when this record was recorded, so it would have been early as new wave British heavy metal goes. Whether it really is that is kind of questionable anyway, but it's good stuff, man. I'm really enjoying these, and I don't know. In a way, it's surprising to me that it took me so long to find this because I've been such a big Deep Purple fan for really all my life at this point. Anyway, people talk about colored vinyls and bitch about it, but that's cool. I don't care, man. It's like, yeah, I know there's a reason for black vinyl and whatever else, but something? When I pull out a record, especially when I'm not expecting it, like in this case, and it looks like this, I go, man, I'm not going to lie. That's awesome. So, hey, turntablist, thanks for joining, man. Appreciate it. Better late than never, yeah. And you watched the first part earlier on, so I was just talking about records. So, hey, on actually, so I should do a couple of book reviews. I was going to talk about the Noise book. Yeah, let me just fucking do it. Let me grab that thing. Hang on. What do I do with my drink? I'm going to grab another drink. Keep jumping up. I feel like I'm too good. Whatever. All right, here we go. Now, I feel bad walking off camera if this record runs so fucking good. So, all right, so I got these two books right around the same time. In fact, I think I ordered them, like, literally in the same order. This one I read pretty much right away, okay? Probably aware of this. Brian Slagle wrote it with Mark Eglinton. So, I don't know, maybe he wrote it all himself, but, for the sake of heaviness, story of Metal Blade Records, okay? And then this one, Damn the Machine. Both these titles are lousy too, aren't they? The story of Noise Records. Now this one has a better cover up, but that fucking Metal Blade cover is just fine too. It's a little generic given that it's their logo now. And this one has that away art, from the dude from Voivod. So anyway, I actually got these a while ago. I read the one right away. This one I kind of didn't start it, but I didn't get into it because I wasn't in the right headspace. I think I was listening to a lot of jazz or something at that point. I just didn't feel like it, This book, truthfully, I'm a big fan of reading, man. Although reading about bands and labels can be a turnoff sometimes, for sure. But, yeah, I mean, there are bookcases over there and shit, so I don't want to be pretentious. Anyway, so this fucking book is pretty fucking boring, man. I mean, it's kind of cool, but basically Brian Slagle is like a middle-class kid, grew up in Southern California, supportive family, did pretty well, fell in love with metal, started a label in his parents' garage. The label did pretty well, and he found all these acts, and he lived happily ever after. It's like, there's like no conflict or anything. It's really nothing to it. This book is like the opposite, okay? This motherfucker. First of all, I didn't even realize that he was the guy behind Aggressive Rockproduktionen, which was a German punk label out of Berlin, which I have a couple records on anyway. Like there's Slime records on that label, and they did a few licenses too, like They did a Misfits license of the Evil Live EP that's kind of sought after now, but I just bought it in Germany. It's no big deal. When this guy started that label, that punk label, he like wasn't even into music when he was growing up, right? But like he was fucking squatting, like literally like in a fucking like in an empty building in Berlin, and like trying to run it with a bunch of other people, with like these other punk rockers who were like German and like singing in German and like super political and shit like that. And he was like running the fucking label out of a phone booth at the time, and then eventually he like moved into yeah, summed up his life in 30 seconds. I'm not sure if you're talking about Brian Slagle or this dude, because I haven't even scratched the surface with this. But just all sorts of shit, man, story after story, and they're all like really trippy, you know what I mean? As far as him setting up these deals with the distros, and like him hiring a lot of women, which a lot of people weren't doing at the time at all, especially like in the metal world. I mean, let's be honest, Metal in the 80s was kind of more sexist than it is now, I don't know that it was any worse than any other part of society. That's sort of I'm not willing to fall on, but, the idea that like 2/3 of his office was women just because he put an ad in the paper, and if they came in, like he just didn't have a problem with them. It was cool, it's like, it's ahead of his time, And meanwhile, he's signing these bands like fucking Celtic Frost, you know what I mean? He like he brought in Hellhammer just because he was looking for the heaviest thing out there, and that's what came across his way. And then like they just go and completely rebrand themselves and change their style and everything with and he's like, okay, that's cool. Did I watch the Mentors doc? I know. Where is that? Is that for streaming somewhere? Because here's the thing. Okay, I was gonna say I'd like to, and I would, because I'll bet it's fucking great. But the thing is, I did see Kurt and Courtney, which was fantastic. And El Duce in that documentary was so good that I'm a little bit afraid that like the Mentors documentary would like be a little disappointing because it wouldn't live up to that standard. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he like stole the show. I mean, the whole conspiracy theory angle in that, I'm just such a sucker for that sort of thing. So you mix music into that, even if it's a band I don't particularly care about, that's good enough. Thanks for the tip on that, man, because I will check that shit out. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. If you saw Kurt and Courtney, man, you know what I'm saying. That motherfucker like stole the show on that. And then like he turns up dead. Oh my god, the whole thing was just like mind blowing. It's like people who just fucking discovered Dan Brown 10 years ago or whatever. I don't know, man. Like conspiracy theories rule. This is fucking something to read books for, man. I mean, Ancient Aliens is good too. Don't get me wrong, right? But like, yeah. Well, this is mean conspiracy theories. Okay, this is going to sound pretentious, probably, but whatever. When Dan Brown, when his that second book came out, Angels and Demons and shit, and people were all freaking out about the whole like Priory of Zion and all that shit. Not the Priory of Zion. That's like the whole thing with like the Merovingians and all that shit. Anyway, I was like, when that shit came out, people were freaking out, and I was like, I thought everyone knew that Jesus married Mary Magdalene and moved to the south of France and had a family. So not that I'm like inclined to believe this kind of shit, but I love it. Okay. So does Slagle have any cool stories? You talk about those early metal bands. I mean, here's the thing, a little bit here and there, but nothing that was particularly memorable. Okay. Now I don't have the best memory, right? But like, okay, here, an interview with Betsy Weiss of Bitch, okay? Give us a sense of the scene in LA in 1980. What, if anything, was going on? How did the band come to be formed? Was music what you always wanted to do? How did the connection with Brian and Metal Blade come about? How difficult has it been as being a woman in the metal business? Has it changed over the years? And then the band had some management issues back in the 80s. Would you say that hindered your progress? It's like shit like of that caliber. It's like you kind of don't care. It's like I don't give a shit about the answers to any of those questions. So it's kind of like that. I mean, it's a little bit interesting when they're like putting the first Metal Massacre together, but for the most part, it's just like, yeah, he liked that band and blah blah blah, and then he was friends with Lars, and he liked this other band, and he was friends with Bitch, and it's just kind of boring, man. Yeah, there's just no like. It's mostly just Brian Slagle lived a really good life, really charmed life. Apparently, he got lucky in a lot of ways, you know, like not just with the label and shit, but like he doesn't seem to have had a lot of conflict with his family or anything like that, and never had any like serious like financial troubles. It's not like he was ever homeless or anything like that, never like got addicted to drugs or anything like that. It's just pretty normal life, and didn't like flunk out of school. It was like, yeah, so it's just kind of boring, man. There's no conflict, no like nothing, no hook, Well, there's a hook. The hook is the fucking fantastic label, And it's interesting to hear about these bands and him like licensing with shit from overseas and that, but it's just not. There's nothing in there you couldn't kind of just assume, Yeah, some people just have no reason to write a book. But the fact is, in a case like Brian Slagle, I gotta say, I almost wonder if he did the right thing by writing the book so we could see that there was no book there to be written. Because otherwise we'd wonder, you know what I mean? Like in 50 years or something like that, maybe it wouldn't be us, but like people coming after us who are like discovering the shit for the first time because metal is suddenly hip now. That song was a little bit crap, by the way. I'll concede that, but I'm liking almost every song on this record. They'd be like, oh my God, Brian Slagle, maybe he had like all these like amazing stories. Like there was this whole book to be written and the story to be told, and we don't know what the story is. Well, he does us a favor writing the book, and there's really nothing there, but we know that now, so it's, maybe it was still the right thing to do, even though there was no reason to do it in a way, but anyway, looking at that shit, got me to pull this out. Actually, I pulled out the Hellhammer record too, but I put this one on first. This record is so fucking fantastic. And interestingly, this is actually the Metal Blade license. It's interesting, I didn't even know this, but the band considers this to be like the real first record. It's a boring book, dude. I'm telling you, fucking, yeah, Tom, thanks for coming in, by the way, but yeah, that Metal Blade book is boring as fuck. The Noise book, were you here when we were talking about this? This book is awesome. This one's blowing my mind. Dude, I was like 100 pages into this. It was like, I couldn't put it down. Now, I'm still not done with it. I'm still only that far into it. I haven't gotten yet to why, like, all people like Sarl got pissed off at the guy behind Noise Records and shit like that. Some of the shit about Celtic Frost, why they got kind of mad at him over certain things, and kind of obvious shit. Had to do with, money, ultimately. Like, he didn't want to pay to have a record remixed. To Megatherion, they didn't like the mix for, and they were like, we just got this fucking artwork from, H.R. Giger. You know what I mean? Fucking remix the record so it sounds right. But the record was still a huge seller, so it's like, I have it. God, this fucking mustache is itching me, so what can I say, man? You gotta suffer for your art sometimes. Anyway, the Metal Blade book is nothing like that. It's fucking boring. But this one, very highly recommended. Okay, more than probably any other music book I've ever read. Except maybe Miles Davis's autobiography. Anyway, this one, apparently they were kind of pissed off that about the EP in that it came out as in Germany. Like, they wanted to put on a couple extra songs, but the dude, whose fucking name I'm spacing, Carl, he, for some reason, he said he had to be a mini LP, so it came out as a 6-song mini LP over there. It came out as an 8-track LP over here, and they like the LP version better, so I guess I have the real one, even though I always kind of wanted a Noise one just on principle, and I kind of don't trust bands when it comes to that shit anyway, but this is one of the fucking greatest records of all time, man. If you're into metal or not, if you have it and you don't like it, listen to it again. If you listen to it again and you don't like it, give it some time and listen to it again, because it took me a while. Once I got to that point, I was like, my God, I can't believe how genius this fucking record is. And Celtic Frost generally. I'd rather listen to a bad Celtic Frost record than a good record by a lot of bands, So, yeah, the noise book is awesome, man. As far as something to tag, I assume that's what you mean. So you didn't know about that when you just tagged it on Amazon for the next time. So, hey, man, Christopher Kibler, right on. Good to see you. Another Jesus one, man. Betrayal, Renaissance by Death. All right, first I want to say a few things. I told this dude that I was going to say some nice things about him, so I am. Dude from Girder Music, who put this out, he actually has a YouTube channel, and I wouldn't at all say or do anything to dissuade you from going over and checking it out. I think it's just called Girder Music. He definitely talks about the Jesus music principally, but he's just a good dude, man. He made a video. I just went and like sort of started sampling through a little bit because I was curious. He made a video about Striper where he was just telling stories about them, like things here and there. And I was like, man, this is what the shit should be. You know what I mean? Because I don't give a shit about Striper. But hearing him tell these stories was like awesome. And I really enjoyed it. It's like, that's what's cool. You know what I mean? It's like, if I just go on here and look at people talk about bands I already like, then big deal, right? I already like the bands, so I know that I like them. So not that that isn't fun, you know, but it's really interesting when you like engage and, you know, learn new shit like that. You know what I mean? So he had some interesting stories about Striper that were just fucking fun. So anyway, man, I got a copy of this in the mail, and there's a seam split on the top. And given how tiny the label is, I kind of felt bad, but I reached out and sort of said, hey, and he was like, dude, send it back to me. Fucking printed me a return label. I'll send you one out. He did it. He didn't even wait for the thing to come back. Just fucking totally was like, I'm going to fix that. You know what I mean? And awesome. Like, I really appreciate that. And I'm actually going to put this on right now so y'all can sample this because it's a really good record too, man. In fact, this kind of blew my mind with how good it was. This is, I want to say 94. Like, it's really late for this kind of metal, but it's like kind of technical. Now, the singer kind of sucks, okay? And that's why I'm like pausing a sec, okay? I want to like give you a heads up. The singer sounds like he belongs in a punk band. And he wouldn't be a great punk singer either. But that's kind of the style. And it kind of doesn't fit, although given the time, you can kind of understand it. You know what I mean? Sort of coming off the whole crossover thing anyway. Now they're, you know, it's definitely a metal band, but it's the early 90s, so shit's all fucked up anyway. So anyway, this is really good. So we're going to put this on. This is like, you know, it's funny. In spirits, in a way, it's sort of like that Lord Crucifier one, but it doesn't have all that fucking anarchy. It's like, it's just technical. The songs have a lot of parts, but it all coheres, man. So it really kind of blew my mind. And I had never heard of them before. Well, I guess I pre-ordered this record, so it would have been a couple months ago, but Scott reached out to me and he was like, hey, man, you're going to need this. Scott Waters. And I was like, okay. So that was it. Because, you know, I kind of appreciate a good blind buy. I try not to overdo it because it's a good way to fucking piss away money, but the fact is I can find a reason to like just about anything. And, you know, when someone says, someone who has good, whose taste you generally trust, says this is a really good record, you know, it's kind of fun to just like get it on record and sit down and take it in rather than say, okay, well, let me sample this on YouTube because that's never as cool, you know. Nasty Metal, right on, man. It's not a fucking live stream if you don't join. Good to see you, man. We're listening to Betrayal, okay, in case you missed it. You probably know him already because you always end up knowing this shit, man. I don't know if you fucking look at the metal archives or something while I'm talking, but I'm like, God damn, how do you know all this fucking shit? So, I think I always say this, but if you're not subscribed to Nasty Metal Productions, you should be. Earlier Celtic Frost. Okay, so Monotheist was a lot more sort of doomed out. A sick and creepy, ugly, dark record. Yeah, you know something? That's kind of true. That's how Monotheist is. And I fucking love that record, man. That is really good. One of the things that was interesting is when I saw them live in mid-2000s. I mean, they were touring on Monotheist. That's really the only reunion record they did, so it was right around then, right? Like, their other shit was kind of a little more doomed out, too, you know what I mean? But it all just fits so well, man. I swear, that was one of the best shows I've probably been to. They were fantastic, man. fucking Celtic Frost, man. And I've probably told this story 100 times, man. But I saw them with Sun, you know, like the drone band Sun with the O, like the speakers. And Goat Whore played before Sun. I hope I'm not boring y'all with this fucking story, but anyone who hasn't heard this before, man, fucking, this is at the Fillmore too in San Francisco. So there was some other band, I don't even remember who it was. Then Goat Whore played, and they were like rocking, like got the audience going. They were actually really good. So then Sun comes out, right? And it's all like the light, like the lights and like all this fucking smoke. And then they're standing there with their robes and shit, going like, and man, I have never seen so many middle fingers in the air at a show. Like half the audience had their middle fingers up, man. Like people fucking hated them. It was so awesome. I was like, you know something? I like this band. I'd heard them before. Now, if I had anything, I would never like put those records on around the house. But I was like, you know something? If they get that kind of response from an audience, who admittedly was there to see Celtic Frost, you know, but if that's the response they get, I'm like, you know, I can get behind that. I got to give credit where it's due. So yeah, you're not going to hear me talking any shit about Sun. Into the Pandemonium is probably my least favorite Celtic Frost, but I might come around on one of these days, you know. I really like the Darkness on Monotheist, though, man. If you're going to do a comeback record, that's how to do it, you know. I'd be curious which one there is, which one it is that you like. It doesn't seem like the sort of band where you would like one record. Sorry, if you're watching this later, Chris in the chat's talking about Sun, and he says there's one record he likes, and I think it's a little bit weird to like one record by a band like that. Seems like it's either all or nothing with the package, you know what I mean? In contrast with a band like Celtic Frost, where I could see liking Into the Pandemonium and not anything else, you know? Yeah, I don't know, Betrayal out of Fresno. That's interesting. Okay. So, oh, okay, Cold Lake. Yeah, of course we're going to get to the topic of Cold Lake, right? I think if all glam had sounded like Cold Lake, then people like us right here wouldn't have the contempt for glam that we tend to have. I actually think when it comes to glam, that kind of metal, Cold Lake is first rate. And the fact that it was Celtic Frost doing it, I mean, it's really a bigger change than between Hellhammer and first Celtic Frost album, right? So I don't know why the fuck they would use the same name like that and piss off all their fans, you know? But I actually finally got that record because I decided I wanted it, and that used to be like, that was the one that turned up all the time cheap, right? And so when I was seeing it around for like, you know, online for like starting at $30-40, I was like, fuck that. I'm not paying that for Cold Lake. So it's actually a dealer locally who I got it from for a good price. And gimmicky, man, I can see that because it was following a trend. There's no getting around that, man. But, you know, one thing I've said in the past is that I tend to like records where it's glam writing but heavy delivery. You know what I mean? And that one really kind of meets that criterion, I think. You know what I mean? Yeah. All right. The black one. I wouldn't necessarily know. I'm just curious. It's not like I would just know. I'd have to go look anyway and maybe investigate. But I'm going to look into Overkill anyway. That's my priority. So maybe Sun, but I'm probably not going to turn into a Sun fan. I have a good idea what they're about. I love them, but I just don't see myself starting to listen to that shit at home. I don't know. If anyone totally disagrees with me on Cold Lake, by the way, go ahead and have at it. I'll be honest. My inner contrarian kind of wants me to, or leads me to want to like a record like Cold Lake too, because see, there you go. Cherry Orange, Slade's everything, Poison, and Poison. You have to sink as low as Poison, okay? Like Poison is fucking terrible, right? But some of the bands that people don't like look down on as much, like Cinderella. You know, a lot of people who have pretty good taste will say good things about Cinderella. I frankly don't get it. I think Cinderella's terrible, okay? But they're better than Poison. And Cherry Orchard slays anything by any of those anything they ever fucking did. You know what I mean? Fucking Night Song's my ass. Jesus Christ, what a shit band. Fucking Warrant. Yeah. Oh, hey, Bobby Gas, man, right on. So, Goat Snake, right? Oh, yeah, okay. I don't think I know Goat Snake. I think I've heard something here and there, but I can't, like, talk about him intelligently. It's better than anything Goat Whore, though, honestly. I kind of think that's kind of shitty, but... All right, so you asked about Turkey Day, Bobby Gas. It was kind of... We went to a restaurant, kind of copped out because I got my foot cut on a week ago, so I didn't want to be standing around in the kitchen. And I talked about that earlier, so I don't want to, like, dick over. I don't know how many people are watching at this point, anyway. How long have I been on, in fact? I don't even know. Shit. Oh, it's a little more than an hour. Okay, that's not, like, fucking horrible. Yeah, the German warrant is awesome. That's a different story, okay? But fucking the American warrant, I don't know, man. I was just thinking, I was talking about Steve before and how he, like, the Harmless Rebel, and how he, like, got me to pull out that Anvil record. But he was talking about Cherry Pie, man, and how much he likes that record. And I'm like, man. And I was talking about how the song Cherry Pie kind of made them a laughing stock. And I was thinking, man, watching him going, man, you know, some Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Stinking Rich came out, everybody came out. They were already kind of a laughing stock in the circles I hung around in. You know, to the degree that we paid attention to him at all. Yeah, I'm with you, Lee. Look back on it favorably, Cold Lake. If we were talking about Cold Lake in, 1989 or something, I'd probably be raining contempt on it. But in the grand scheme of things, and looking at alongside records like Shout at the Devil, which is a glam record that's played heavy, but definitely not Theater of Pain or anything else the Crue ever did, except maybe that first one. Yeah, the other ones are obscure. I think of Leather Nun. I think of Mistress. There's another one I dug out not too long ago. But, like, those kinds of records I really like. It's like, I think glam could have been awesome, really. Glam was awesome in the 70s, man. I love Slade and, like, the glam era David Bowie, kind of lukewarm on Lou Reed. But T-Rex, I can hang with all that shit, you know what I mean? But, like, that 80s shit was just so fucking heinous. I don't know, man. I was going to say something about the cocaine, but I'm not really enough of a cocaine aficionado to really make comparisons between the 70s and the 80s. Maybe Bobby Gas can help us out, like talking about the quality of the cocaine in the 70s versus the 80s. All right. So anyways, that's what I had in my stack here. Yeah, so what I want to talk about. There's a lot of Jesus metal in there. Might have some other shit I haven't talked about yet. Yeah, first Motley Crue with less cowbell. I loved the cowbell on that record. I mean, that was one of the things that kind of made that awesome. You know what the thing with that record is I feel like the songs on that one, like I've heard people say things about that record. 80s Coke. Warrant, Poison, Slaughter, and Poison tour, except the good ones. Yeah, okay, I would go to that, totally. Fucking, it is funny how there was like a good one and a bad one with all those band names, right? I like Slave to the Grind too, actually, and I wasn't expecting to. Like 18 in Life and shit. I hated that when it came out. So a friend of mine here was like, "Man, you got to give Slave to the Grind another chance. It's way heavier. It's not like that other bullshit, and it's not like." Bobby Gas is indeed educating us on the quality of cocaine over the era. But I'm not going to read all this shit off. I feel like go and read the chat if you're tuning in later and like just savor these words of wisdom that those of us here live are enjoying because it's fucking fantastic. Yeah, so anyway, Slave to the Grind I don't think it's great, okay, but I think Slave to the Grind is good. Very good. That first Crue record I've heard described as they tried to make a glam record, but everything just went horribly wrong. And I almost feel like that gives them too much credit, because the fact is, the poppy songs on that are really poppy, and they really err on the side of poppiness. You know what I mean? And I don't know, man. Like, I have a leather press of it too. It's like, it's not like, oh, it was better with the original mixes. It's like, no, it really still kind of was crap. And the good parts of that record are awesome. You know what I mean? There's a lot. I mean, Live Wire is one of the greatest fucking songs, dude. It's awesome. But you know, and Piece of Your Action is a great song, but like Merry Go Round is boring, man. That chorus goes on and on. Like, they pioneered what Iron Maiden would perfect with Heaven Can Wait a few years later, just with the chorus going on and on, so you're just so sick of it. Just stop it, you know. Public Enemy #1, you know, it's not a bad song, dude, but if I compare that to Looks That Kill, it's just not as good. So yeah, so that first Crue record, I like it. I genuinely do like it. And yeah, but when it comes to early Crue, I like Shout at the Devil more, so fucking USP, United States Pharmaceutical. Awesome. All right, what else do we have over here, man? Let's fucking pull out some more records to talk about. Yeah, this is all shit that I just talked about in a recent video, so maybe I'm out. Some other shit there I already talked about. Got a couple comps here. I was going to do another dissecting video sometime soon. Yeah, I don't know. So, last time we did one of these, I did an impromptu 5 random records. And I really don't want to do that tonight, because I don't want to, like, give my foot the workout. I should be, like, elevating it, and I'm already not. But, yeah, Too Young to Fall in Love. That's the worst song probably on Shout at the Devil. And it's a really good song. You know what I mean? Like, the worst song on, God damn. See, dude, okay, the leather press of fucking that first Crue record, it has the extra song on it, Stick to Your Guns. That's probably the worst song on there, man. That song is terrible, man. It's fucking shitty. And Too Young to Fall in Love, I mean, that's a pretty cornball song, man. But the only thing I can think of that might be worse than that, and by worse, I mean more superfluous, would be the cover of Helter Skelter, because who needs a Beatles cover, like, ever? You know what I mean? It's the fucking Beatles. So, yeah, Tommy is a good drummer. Kind of an underrated drummer, I think. Yeah, come back to Shout at the Devil. That's exactly it. You know what I mean? That's the one I reached for. And I'll tell you something, man. The later ones, it was like with Shout at the Devil, it's like they clued into something where they were like still trying to be intimidating. Maybe the drugs they were taking were just lower quality. Then by the time they made like Girls, Girls, Girls and Dr. Feelgood, like on those records, they perfected what they'd been trying to do on Too Fast for Love, right? So Too Fast for Love was still kind of cool because they were doing that shit, but they weren't doing it well. So there was still like a lot of character and some charm and some shit to sink your teeth into, you know? Yeah, Vince Neil's a terrible singer. It's like Ozzy Osbourne. I was actually recently, I went on a little kick where I was obsessed with early 80s bootlegs of Ozzy Osbourne, like when Randy Rhoads was still alive, principally, you know what I mean, that era. Because I really love, like, sorry, I'm trying to get comfortable here. I'm going to, like, put my foot up. Yeah, and because, and I got into him because, like, Ozzy was so shitty. I mean, technically, he's a pretty crappy singer anyway, right? It's like you compare him and you compare Dio, and it's really like night and day with Black Sabbath. It's kind of surreal, you know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying Ozzy wasn't perfect for those early Sabbath records, because he fucking was. And I like Ozzy's some of Ozzy's solo records too. You know what I mean? Like the first three, I think are really good records. Okay, but like I went on this kick where I was like at work. I was listening to these fucking like Ozzy bootlegs, and he was terrible, man. Like really obviously fucking drunk. I mean, not just like not like coke, you know what I mean, or like drugs that like pick you up, but just like fucking like drunk off his fucking ass. You know what I mean? And like singing whole songs a half step flat, and it's just like remarkably bad. And you know, I remember back then, like in the early '80s, Ozzy was like the most intimidating thing around. You know what I mean? All you ever heard about, fucking okay. So there were the real shit, right? Like him like biting the head off the bat. You know what I mean? But like I remember, you want to hear some fucking stories? I'd be curious how many of you all have heard these stories too. Vinyl Richie, right on, man. Thanks for joining. You saw Ozzy on the No More Tears? Well, you know something, dude? That was a terrible record too. And Zach Wilde was probably like really sort of reined in. Sorry, I'm catching up on the chat here too. Not a fan of Vince Neil. The Madonna, who did a Madonna cover? The Crue? Or was that someone else? Yeah, Theater of Shame, dude. When that record came out, man, all my friends who were Crue fans fucking hated it, except the ones who really tried to like them. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, totally. Hey, whatever, man. It is what it is. So, what was I talking about? Oh yeah. So like in the early '80s, okay, I was like in, I was like 10, shit like that. Like I was hearing stories about Ozzy, like okay, so about biting the head off the bat, you know what I mean? But like I heard that like at Ozzy concerts that like they would pass a cup around and everyone would spit in it, and then Ozzy would drink it. I don't remember who told me that, you know what I mean? And then I heard that like he would have like a sheep on stage, and then he'd blow it up with dynamite. Yeah. You've talked about seeing with Randy. Did he have a sheep on stage, Vinyl Richie, that he blew up with dynamite? I suspect he didn't. I think that was about as true as a story of Gene Simmons jumping off the stage and crushing a baby's head, which I also heard. Yes, actually, that one's true about fucking Vince Neil and the dude from Hanoi Rocks. Theater of Shame. That's so funny. I actually haven't heard it called that before, but although when I lived in Germany, me and my friends, we Peace of Mind by Iron Maiden, we called Piece of Scheiß. But that was like affectionate because we all loved that record, so that was different. You know what I mean? Yeah, he didn't blow up the sheep. Right on. I'm not surprised. I heard that he'd have like a toilet on stage, and he would like crap on Bibles and flush them down the toilet. Like that was part of his stage show. Like it's funny. Kids would tell me this shit. And no one ever really thought about the logistics of like the plumbing fixtures on like a show or tour or something like that. But the plasmatics blew up a galaxy. That I actually believe. Anyway, Vinyl Richie, fucking him and Rob Paniques. I bet if either of them wrote a book, it'd be better than Brian Slagle's fucking book. But yeah. Anyway, so like this is the shit that Ozzy was known for, right? For infamous for, and like you listen to him, and he's fucking terrible on these bootlegs. He just sounds like absolute shit. Like when he talks, it's embarrassing, and like his singing is just like abysmal. And his band is cooking. They're like really good, you know what I mean? But he just fucking sucks beyond belief. I'm like, God damn, man. So, oh yeah, the story about Alice Cooper, the chickens, that's a pretty good one. So, yeah. All right, I want to know something. Oh, on the dirt sound like a virgin, really? You know what's fucked? The Lords of the New Church covered Like a Virgin back in the 80s. And you know something? It was terrible. Big surprise. Now, the Lords of the New Church weren't really the greatest band ever anyway. But fucking... You can learn from other people's mistakes. You know what I mean? You don't have to make them yourself. Like, if I ever start a band, one thing we are not going to do is cover Eleanor Rigby. Because I've heard 10,000 shitty Eleanor Rigby covers and some good Eleanor Rigby covers that I was so fucking sick of the song anyway that I just couldn't fucking enjoy them, and they spoil the whole goddamn record for me, right? So one thing we're not gonna do is cover Eleanor Rigby. Now the fucking Crue, they could have learned from Stiv's mistake. They could have learned from fucking Lords of the New Church, right? But no. I'm starting to feel like fucking Robert Z here, like sitting here and just like fucking waving my hands around and talking and shit. So the early 80s Ozzie clip on Letterman, you know something? I'll bet that was awesome. Because I'll bet Ozzie was terrible, and I'll bet Dave was like mean, and it was probably fantastic. That's weird that you would have offended Rob. He doesn't comment on your videos anymore. I wonder why that might be. I don't know. I think he's been working a lot lately, though, too. I don't know how long it's been going on, but anyway. Oh, hey, I want to ask something else. Okay, Donnie Harrison. You just said Motley Crue covered Like a Virgin on the Dirt soundtrack. It's fucking horrible. And it says F and a bunch of stars. Did you type in fucking and the YouTube chat censored it? I actually really want to know this because, you know, like my fucking like speech to text on my cell phone does that. And I want to know if they're doing that. The entire recording of Never Say Die is drunk. Yeah, no surprise. Fucking Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah, I seriously want to know though if the chat like censors these words or if you did that. Because if you did that, that's fine. If YouTube's doing that, it kind of pisses me off a little bit because you know something? I marked this video as not for children. Listen how good this is. Want to see something kind of funny that Coltrane, my younger kid, did? Okay, thank you. Chris just spelled fuck out, and it says fuck. Okay, thank you. I just want to know. I just want to test that. You know what I mean? Here, check this out. The crutch that I was using, I was fucked up. And see, you put that Waluigi plushie in there. I think that's kind of awesome. So, it's kind of a little kiddish thing to do. I keep my voice down because Coltrane's 13 and he's self-conscious about that now. But fucking, he still does things like that where I'm like, oh, he's my boy, you know. And the Waluigi is just hilarious anyway. So, cool. I appreciate everyone like testing the fuck in the chat. So, let's consider it. Yeah. Well, I'm kind of out of shit to talk about, so I think I'm going to end this. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. I mean, does anyone want to like, you know, open discussion here? It's funny to me how people do like AMAs, but these are always AMAs. Ask me anything real quick. So, you know something? Bobby Gass is talking about kids cursing more than adults these days. Yeah, I'm going to get fined 42 grand. Just wait. I'm really not worried about that shit. You know why? Because my channel is huge by the standards that I set when I was starting this shit. I have like 1,400 subscribers, man. You know who doesn't give the slightest fuck? The FTC. Seriously, man. That's one thing I'm not going to worry about. Yeah, turntablists are in the same boat. Then he's my youngest too, so my older one was like 35 when he was born. It's funny, my mom said that about me, man. I hate the idea of turning into my parents. You know something I've noticed too? The older I get, the more my farts sound like my dad's. And that really kind of wakes me up. Why did I move to the Carolinas? Okay, if I'm going to answer a question like that, I got to put it on the record. So that was Betrayal, though, man. That was really good, I think. And so, again, in case you're just tuning in, Greg from Girder Music fucking Great guy, couldn't have been better. And I'm saying this because there was a problem with the order, and it was a small problem that would have been willing to live with. And he was like, "No, let me fix that shit, and let me take care of it in like the most awesome way possible." You know. So yeah, great guy. Go check out his fucking YouTube channel too. And let me put on a record. And I'll talk about moving to the Carolinas. Actually, I'm gonna throw one on just for Chris here. So I actually just grabbed this bad boy today. Actually, so I'm just gonna put this record on. It's a new arrival. It's one I actually had once before, but let go of. In retrospect, man, I shouldn't have done that. I should have fucking kept it. Give me 1 second. It's one of those where I have to figure out which one is side A and which one is side B. That's what I thought it was. So here we go. All right. We're just going to play this, and someone tell me what this record is once you figure it out, okay? Wow, Ozzie in 1970? Michael Valenti and Ozzie right after Randy Rosé. God damn it, everyone fucking saw Ozzie except me. I never did. But here's the thing, man. Ozzie, when I got really into metal, I got into Ozzie for a bit, but for most of the time I was into metal, Ozzie was kind of wussy for me. That's the irony, you know what I mean? So, okay. Also, do I play an instrument? Let me answer that one first. Not really. I used to play the bass. I haven't picked it up in a long time. I listen to someone like Mr. Thumpfinger, and I do not play the bass, okay? I can play a little bit. I can, play a couple power chords on the guitar. I can play a couple chords on a fucking keyboard instrument, too. It's like I studied music, actually, when I was at Cleveland State, so I kind of got a lot of background in that without really learning. I was probably a better singer than anything else. I did do a lot of that. Like, I sang backups for Kenny Rogers once. I think I told that story recently, though, so maybe not, but I think I did. So, so why did I move to the Carolinas? I was at South Carolina, too, by the way. The one with half the people and kind of half the awesomeness, but it'd probably been more of an education for me than North Carolina would have been, too, because there are all sorts of things like that I just didn't really know about the country until I moved here. Yeah, Chris, I could see you playing the drums because you have the attitude. The only thing is you're not fat enough to be a drummer. I expect drummers to be fat. At least in metal bands, man, the drummers always seem to be fat. So there are a few different things, okay? So when after Coltrane was born, we moved to the East Bay from San Francisco proper because even though we had, by San Francisco standards, a big place, it was still too small with 2 kids. You know what I mean? So we moved out to Livermore in the East Bay, and it was okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Livermore, really. It's just like kind of way out in the suburbs, you know. I made some good friends there and shit like that. But I got tired of the grind in the job market there and just how saturated it is and how cutthroat it is and just the whole like Silicon Valley aesthetic, you know, and all that kind of shit. Working on the fat part right on. That I was just ready for a change, you know what I mean? Anyway, so Charleston, South Carolina came up specifically because my brother was living here at the time. Ironically, he moved back after about 2 years as a consequence of an ugly divorce, so it's not even a good story. I mean, it's a great story, but it's not what I'm going to talk about here because it's not my place to talk about that. And it's not happy or funny, you know? But so we sort of went, okay, you know, we lived in San Francisco for the better part of 20 years. So it's like, rather than sitting here and sort of trying to cling to the facade of our life in San Francisco, maybe we should just go ahead and make a real change. So here we are, coastal South Carolina, and I'll tell you some of the things that really kind of blew my mind. And, since Tom mentioned it before, it's a little bit apropos to the shirt. Not that I wasn't really already in my politics anyway, but that's such a primitive version of the song. Yeah, I lived in Texas for about a year and a half. That's because I was consulting I got a consulting job at Dell, and I had been doing the Road Warrior thing where I traveled every week. And after commuting to Palm Beach from San Francisco for the better part of a year, I was like, I'll just move down there and fucking live there rather than spending half my life on planes and in hotels. So that was ended up there. And then when we left there, I was like, oh, let's go to LA. Just fucking check it out, right? So anyway, I then moved back to San Francisco from LA. So, oh yeah, one of the things that tripped me out, the driving out across the country here, I've lived in cities, like, for most of my life. Charleston's the smallest place I've ever lived. And I've seen a lot of urban poverty, you know what I mean? I've spent some time in, poor parts of San Francisco and to a lesser degree LA and, Cleveland even. But what I hadn't seen is rural poverty, you know what I mean? And I didn't understand what country is until I came to the South, because there's oh, okay, yeah, it is Black Flag in the background, but you gotta guess what the record is, though. If you're having trouble hearing it, maybe I should turn it up a little, because I kind of put this on for you. Anyway, I had never really seen that kind of rural poverty before, and it was really sobering. You know what I mean? It's like I've had experiences now, like driving out in the fucking country in the middle of nowhere in the northeastern corner of Georgia, actually, because I was visiting the Georgia Guidestones. That's what I was doing out there. And the Georgia Guidestones are awesome. But driving around out there, and it's like we have to stop for directions. So where are we? A dollar store, because that's the only thing around. It's a fucking dollar store, okay? Like, for when Spencer and I went up to tour the school, yeah, okay, go to India. Yeah, that is a different order of magnitude. That's true. But man, there's one thing that might not translate to Canada as much, but one thing they really drill into you in America is that it's a great country. It's like, yeah, there's all the greatest country on earth bullshit. Frankly, if you have any brains, you kind of outgrow that, because the whole idea of comparing countries like that is kind of it's a fool's errand anyway, right? But you hear about these things like putting a man on the moon and all these great things that America can do, but somehow we have like thousands of people living out in the fucking country or in the inner cities who are just dirt poor. You know what I mean? And it's like their whole existence, there's no hope, no fucking prospects. And it's just like, Jesus Christ. Like, I don't know, man. It's the sort of thing that makes you appreciate what you have, but it's also the sort of thing where you look at it and go, there's some deep problems in this country that, that we need to work on solving, but that we can solve. And that's the thing that really pissed me off, is like, oh, well, there's just nothing you can do. It's like, no, these problems are soluble. You know what I mean? I don't believe that it's impossible to solve these problems. We just have to have the political will to solve the problems. You know what I mean? Oh, thanks for asking about Spencer. All right, I'll talk about Spencer twice in the video. Spencer was here. We tried to make a video, but my camera got all fucked up, so the video got corrupted and we couldn't do it. But he is. I love Black Flag, dude. But this isn't damaged. That was a good guess based on police story, but this isn't damaged. Oh yeah, Spencer's going to Alaska for his winter work term, man. He's going to Dutch Harbor. So yeah. He wanted to go someplace remote. So he's going to where they make Deadliest Catch, fucking 2-hour flight from Anchorage. Apparently the oldest Orthodox church in North America, because it's like right from where the Russian missionaries came over. Maybe when it was even still Russian, you know what I mean? So, all right. So, yeah. So there we go. You asked me about fucking why did I move to the Carolinas? And there we go. I like Tulsi too, by the way. So, yeah, there's certain things about her I'm not crazy about. I wish she hadn't backtracked on Medicare for all, but I don't want to make this too political either. You know what I mean? It's like I've talked about how I feel about poverty in this country and what I think it says to us and about us, and the fact that I believe we can solve these problems. So yeah, it's supposed to be like the best fishing, like one of the best like fishing places in the world. No, it's not the first 4 years. It's not slipping in. Yeah. MAGA, right on. It says the dude from Kazakhstan, right? All right, you give up on this record, man? It is, dude. Fucking, he wanted to go someplace remote, man. He fucking did it. And he worked the network to do it. Like, he made friends because they can kind of, we're in a work term. Oh, let's see you later, Bobby. Right on. Tom, I agree with you. I think that's the tip of the iceberg. But yeah, abso-fucking-lutely. Okay. That's so funny. Bobby's like, later, guys. Pizza's here. I'm out. Oh, are you kidding? A band called MAGA? That's not the Kyrgyz band I was trying to think of before. Their name's something in. I don't know. Dude, I'll bet you do have this record. I guarantee you, actually, I'm pretty sure Vinyl Richie showed this. I don't know if he's still on, but I know for a fact he has this. Chris, you probably have this too, man, right? I really don't listen to very much punk anymore. I mean, I've talked about that, you know. I don't want to talk any shit about it, but dude, Bobby Gass, generally speaking, when someone like posts a whole bunch of like music shit, I won't subscribe because I can't be bothered to keep up with that, right? I made an exception for Farley, but Bobby Gass was the first one I made an exception for. I was like, those other ones are so fucking good. Feeders, right on. Yeah, this has the insert in it too. Fucking posters. So, yeah, this is just such a classic comp, man. I had a copy this a long time ago that didn't have the insert. I saw this today and I was like, man, that's coming home. And because I know him, I got the record store day deal anyway, even though it was the day after. So, yeah, I mean, it's funny to like talk about a record like this because I really kind of respect this stuff more than I dig it. This isn't really my speed anymore. I loved this shit for a while, you know, but like, this is just so classic. I mean, Flipper, DOA, Black Flag, Bad Brains, Dead Kennedys, Circle Jerks. Okay, that's side one before you get to Really Red, whom I hadn't heard of. Then the Feeders right now, and then the Subhumans. Okay, it's like every one of those bands, you know, it does look like Fetus of Fetus, sort of, except maybe a little less. What's the word? Unsubtle. Yeah, there's even a fucking half Japanese song on here, man. So, yeah. This is actually an Italian press. But it looks like they did a pretty nice version of keeping the original shit. You know, it even has the Alternative Tentacles logo on it. So, yeah, man, I'll make exceptions. And comps, it's funny because since I've been listening to new wave British heavy metal shit, I've been interested in comps again. Yeah, someone said bust out a comp before, and I didn't actually. But yeah, punk theologian indeed. I mean, I did listen to a lot of punk. It's just I was really sort of selective. I listened to a lot of American stuff, 70s stuff. Listen to a few 80s things, but not much. But Black Flag was one of the bands that got me through high school. Black Flag and the Misfits, you know? All right. All right, well, thanks everyone for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate it. I'm going to kick back for a little bit, probably watch a movie, and then retire. And, yeah. That's it. So, cheers. I'll be keeping the mustache for a bit. All right, I tell you that I'm going to the Maddion show in about a week. Fucking, if you don't know who Maddion is, go look it up, and you'll be surprised the Metal Theologian is going to that show. But yeah, that's actually going to be Coltrane's first show. We're driving to Atlanta for it. It's going to be a pain in the ass, but totally worth it, man. Like, when I was a kid, my dad would, like, drive me and my friends to shows. He was the cool dad, you know what I mean? And, like, I was like, when I got a little bit older, I was like, yeah, that's the dad I want to be, you know what I mean? So, yeah. The only difference is I'm going to go to the show. He would just, like, sit around and read books in the car or something. So, cool. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you very much for joining and hanging out. It's a pleasure, and I'll make regular videos again sometime soon. But the stream's a little easier, and my ankle's fucked up like this anyway, so it's my excuse. But I don't need one because it's fucking fun anyway. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate you joining. It's not the same if I don't have you all hanging out with me, so take care. Have a good night.